Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Wu and welcome to my channel. In this channel I talk about all things mental health. Today we're going to talk about ants and how they can ruin some of your thought patterns, so stay tuned. So our mind is a tricky place. We have about 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day running through our head. That is an average of about 55 thoughts per minute. That's a lot of thinking. Some days it feels more overwhelming than others, especially on days when we are particularly anxious and we notice our thoughts spiraling. In Buddhism or in mindfulness, this term is referred to as the monkey mind. The monkey mind is that constant chatter in our brain. Like monkeys that leaps from a tree to a tree, there is a sense of unsettled restlessness, capricious, whimsical, confused, indecisive, and uncontrollable type of thinking. If you ever watch monkeys in the wild, you probably notice that they move constantly, aimlessly, and sometimes in a way that appears without purpose. Our mind, just like a wild monkey, can take us and sway us into different directions, making us feel overwhelmed. Now, if thoughts were non-intrusive, we wouldn't have major problems with them. However, it does get complicated when we experience ants. Yes, those little bugs. Or what we call automatic negative thoughts. The author, Dr. Daniel Amen, of the book Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, coined this term in the early 1990s. The story goes that he came home from work one day and there were ants in his kitchen. And he started spraying them as he noticed his thoughts. He was thinking about his day, his patients, and so on. It dawned on him that just like his infested kitchen, his mind was also swarming with automatic negative thoughts. Ants. Just a different type. Now, all of us experience some form of automatic negative thoughts. We can't stop our brain from thinking, just like we can't stop our heart from beating. Well, it is a force of life, so don't try stopping it in any way. Some conditions bring a swarm of ants into the surface. Anxiety is a common type of condition where we worry about the future. It could be related to our health, relationship, employment, our loved ones. We are experiencing immense concerns that make it difficult to focus on the present moment. Depression is another form of condition where we might experience ants. With depression, we spend a lot of time thinking about the past and also experience many negative thoughts about the future. How it will not change and the likelihood of it remaining gloomy. We find ourselves swarmed with ants relating to self-blame, self-loathing, and hopelessness. The challenge with ants is that even if we try really hard to ignore them or pretend like they don't exist, or one of my favorite, try not to think about them, we can't get rid of them. And understanding your ants can be very helpful when it comes to mastering your automatic negative thoughts. There are a number of automatic negative thoughts, and today I would like to focus on a number of them in order to help bring attention to the type of thinking that may be getting in the way and may result in increased depression and anxiety. Let's take a closer look at ants that may bug you. The first ant is all or nothing thinking. When it comes to all or nothing thinking, there are two polar opposites. I'm either successful or I'm a loser. I'm either powerful or I'm powerless. I'm either good or bad. The problem with this type of thinking is it is very limiting. It creates extreme and impossible expectations, and it expects us to be or strive for perfection. Let's keep it real, we're human, and therefore perfection is rather unattainable. And as such, falling trapped into this all or nothing thinking can generate feelings of depression, low motivation, impaired self-esteem, and increased anxiety. The fortune teller is one of my very favorite.
With this type of thinking, we predict a negative outcome without realistically considering the probability that this outcome is actually real. Again, this type of thinking can lead to increasing anxiety and depression. There is a difference between an assumption and fortune telling. With an assumption, we are making an educated guess, where we look at the evidence and consider the risks of a situation, and based on that educated guess, we are making a prediction. However, an assumption is based on the evidence. It is designed to help us avoid mistakes and be mindful of potential pitfalls. However, fortune telling is mostly emotionally driven. There is no evidence to support this type of thinking. We may come up with lots of reasons to support our fortune telling, even when they don't make much sense. For example, I will never get a job. This type of fortune telling is not necessarily based on reality. If you were to stand in court and defend this type of prediction, would you win? Have you had a job before? Did you interview for a job? Did you even apply? Chances are this type of thinking sway you from even trying to move towards your goals. Why try when you already know the outcome? Catastrophizing. With catastrophizing, we tend to jump into the worst possible conclusion with very limited information. We assume the worst will happen. This is more than just fortune telling. We catastrophizing things, we take them to a whole new level of extreme. For example, a student is worried that he might fail an exam. And based on that assumption, he feels anxious and maybe even depressed that not only he will fail, but also never pass, get a degree, find a job, essentially become homeless, and will remain financially unstable until the end of days. This is the worst case scenario, and then some. A lot of times we don't pay attention how this type of thinking transpire, and this will start from potentially failing one exam. Now, realistically speaking, how many successful people do you know that failed an exam or two? Failing does not mean that this is the end of all financial stability. However, a person who is catastrophizing might not be able to see that. Oftentimes, our monkey mind jumps and leaps from one tree to the next, and we don't realize that we're doing it. When we are catastrophizing and there is no control over our worries, they become so consuming and overwhelming. Should statements is another type of ants. Should statements are the trap of unmet and unrealistic expectations. When we fall into the trap of the shooting ourselves, we generate feelings of guilt and shame. I should be doing X, Y, and Z. And in reality, I should be going to the gym, I should be eating better, I should be acing this test. Should statements are very different from goals. Goals are good for you. They help you set expectations for yourself that are realistic and also help you create steps to move in that direction. Should, on the other hand, can have a major impact on our well-being. With should, there is a sense of shame and judgment about what I'm ought to do. When I use should, there is no room for negotiating, and it puts you under a lot of pressure. There is a sense of comparison that will never be met. Emotional reasoning. I always say that we cannot reason with emotions. Have you ever tried to stop feeling the way you do? Stop loving your child. Stop hating your enemy. Stop admiring your idol. The reality is that we feel the way we feel, and there is no room for negotiation. Therefore, when I reason with emotions, I create this trap that can bring a lot of sense of fear and anxiety and panic inducing. Emotional reasoning is very common with individuals who experience panic disorders. Here's an example of how emotional reasoning can escalate. Say you have a fear of flying,
And while you're sitting on the plane, you start having some anxiety reaction. You notice that your hands are shaking and you're a little bit sweaty and starting to feel that the plane is going to crash. You say to yourself, I have a feeling the plane is going to crash. Can I even reason with something like that? Probably not. And most likely, instead of being able to de-escalate this feeling, I may increase it to the point of having a panic attack. What do we do with all these negative types of thinking? How do we protect ourselves from our ants? One way to do it is by putting on our pants. PANTS stands for positive, automatic, neutral thoughts. Positive. One of the things that I want you to notice that ants, whether we are shooting ourselves, using emotional reasoning, or catastrophizing, we engage in thoughts that are unhelpful. And when something is not helpful, it is important to notice it. So in order to find something that is more helpful, I offer you to look and focus on positive qualities. In order to find positivity, it is important to bring these thoughts to the forefront, initially with some effort, until they become automatic. One way to do so is to journal and spend some time capturing the actions that you have done. When you do that, we are able to expand our thinking in a way that is healthier. Automatic. It takes time to develop a new habit. How long did it take you to learn to drive? How long did it take you to graduate from school? How long did it take you to build a routine? How long did it take you to form your ants? I'll give you a hint. How old are you? This is how long you have been using this type of thinking. So expecting it to transform overnight is unrealistic. Be compassionate and kind to yourself as you build this new line of thinking. Practice makes progress. The more you get into the habit of catching these ants, spraying them with positivity, and reconstructing your type of thinking, the more proficient you're going to become. It will get easier with time. It is okay for it to feel clunky for now. Neutral. Remain impartial and unbiased. One way to do so is to separate your self-worth from your performance. You're not your job. You're not a score on a test. You're not the sum of money you have in your bank. And as such, your opinion of yourself should be rooted in your values and your goals, in your qualities, not your performance on one given day. If you base your opinion about yourself based on how you feel, you need to also keep in mind that emotions are flaky. And one moment you may feel good, but it is short-lived, and you can't rely on feelings to keep you grounded. I like using a specific exercise to make sure that I remain impartial and unbiased. I use the phone a friend technique. Think about it. If you are in a situation where you are catching yourself catastrophizing, using all or nothing thinking, ants are running around in your mind, infesting every corner of your existence. You find yourself in a spiral of negative thoughts about yourself. Play this game where you phone a friend. If you were a good friend to yourself in this very moment, what would you say? If the thoughts that are roaming in your mind are not consistent with what you would tell a dear friend, be mindful. Be compassionate. Be a good friend to yourself. Fourth, of the part of the pants, thoughts. Keep in mind that thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts, and therefore they can be negotiated with. When you have thoughts that are negative, it is important to learn how to recognize that they are there, and at the same time, you can remain committed to the behaviors that are going to move you towards your goals. You're the sky. Thoughts are just like weather. They come and go, sometimes in the form of sun and rainbows, sometimes in the form of storm clouds. Regardless, they are transient and short-lived. If you can hold on to that, you can remain detached and evaluate them in a way that does not leave you spiraling. Some questions to consider is asking yourself, in order to shift this kind of thoughts, is to think about the pros and the cons of both sides of your internal argument. What are the facts? What are my assumptions? Will this matter in 5 years? All these can help you gain some space between you and the storm clouds. To review, automatic negative thoughts are just like ants. One is harmless, but a whole nest can send you to a state of panic, confusion, and depression. Be mindful and notice when your mind is taking you on this roller coaster ride. Put your pants on and spray those ants by asking questions that give you the space to evaluate them in a more healthy, neutral manner. Remember, practice makes progress, and this is not an overnight shift. It is a habit that you're going to practice daily until it becomes automatic. Just like you brush your teeth first thing in the morning, take a shower and eat, put your mind in a mental gym so that you can get a resilience pump. I hope that you heard something that was helpful for you today. If you like what you heard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, pay attention to your ants and be well.